You're listening to the Cyberwire Network, powered by N2K.
Hey everybody, Rick here. You've all heard me blathering on this year about my latest book, Cybersecurity First Principles, a reboot of strategy and tactics. Well, we've turned it into an on-demand course featuring me, yours truly, as the instructor. I highlight what I think are the follow-on strategies to pursue the absolute cybersecurity first principle, which is reduce the probability of material impact due to a cyber event in the next 3 to 5 years. The follow-on strategies include zero trust, automation, resilience, intrusion kill chain prevention, and risk forecasting. I think it's the perfect quick-hitting content for busy security leaders like you and me, and it's all available now. Check out www.n2k.com/first principles course, all one word. That's www.n2k.com/first principles course.
They know your name, they know your email address, they know who you are, and all those previously anonymous behaviors get rolled up against your identity to tie it to your PII.
Greetings to all, and a warm welcome to the Hacking Humans podcast, brought to you by the Cyberwire. Every week we delve into the world of social engineering scams, phishing plots, and criminal activities that are grabbing headlines and causing harm to organizations all over the world. I'm Dave Bittner, and joining me is Joe Kerrigan from the Johns Hopkins University Information Security Institute. Hey, Joe.
Hi, Dave.
We got some good stories to share this week, and later in the show, my conversation with Harry Maugans. He's CEO of Privacy Bee, and we're talking about digital breadcrumbs. But first, a word from our sponsors at KnowBe4. Time travel would be a particularly powerful tool in the hands of any overworked InfoSec professional. Think about it. Being able to see the future and know which malicious emails would be missed by all the existing filters. Your ability to stay one step ahead of the bad actors would rise to a whole new level. Unfortunately, our sponsors haven't cracked time travel just yet. They are, however, introducing a new phishing protection product that can block and remove dangerous phishing emails before your users even see them. Stay with us, and in a few minutes, you'll learn how. All right, Joe, before we jump into our stories here, we got some follow-up from a listener. What do we got here?
Yeah, this is Phil. He writes in, he says, I have a question about safety of IoT consumer devices and how, and perhaps if, consumers can do anything to encourage companies to do their due diligence in this field. And it's a long email, so I'm just going to summarize it here. But the crux of his question is, should consumers use market forces or government regulation or legislation, or both, or neither, to pressure/force companies to conduct better security audits of the networking behavior of and software in their products, and if so, how?
Right.
So Phil then goes on to talk about how he purchased a treadmill. Mm-hmm. And it's a treadmill from a very popular manufacturer. He doesn't specify which one, but it is from one of those biggies. I'm not a user of treadmills. Anybody who looks at me can tell that right away.
You're not an elite athlete?
No.
Not anymore.
Pretty good swimmer. Still pretty good swimmer.
Well, you're buoyant anyway.
Right? Yeah, indeed. But he talks about how he looked into the connectivity, the Wi-Fi connectivity. I guess there's some data to be collected somewhere.
Yeah.
And maybe some functionality that you get as a benefit of having this Wi-Fi connectivity. But he looked into the controller, the Wi-Fi piece of it, and found out that this is made in a country that he says is not too friendly to the United States. I'm guessing it's China. That's where a lot of these things come out of.
Sure.
But he contacted the manufacturer to try to find out what they had done and could not get an answer out of them. Surprise, surprise, surprise. I'm absolutely not surprised by this.
Yeah.
So he says his solution was to put the treadmill on his guest network, and he might go through the trouble of putting it on its own VLAN, which I recommend if you have the technical capability to do that, put it on its own VLAN, a single device VLAN.
Okay.
So it can't see anything else in your network.
Right.
Which is a great idea. But he is under the assumption, and probably a correct assumption, that the vast majority of people that buy this device just connect it to their regular home networks.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, yeah, probably all of that information then just goes right up to the provider, probably even your Wi-Fi password. There's a good chance that goes up as well.
Mm-hmm.
That gets saved somewhere.
Yeah.
To answer Phil's question, should consumers use market forces or government regulation? I'm going to say I don't have a lot of faith in market forces on this. And the only reason I don't have faith, generally I do have faith in market forces, but here, consumers really don't care about the problems.
Yeah.
And regulation seems to be the only solution to get these companies to comply and to care about it.
Mm-hmm.
And there are places where they do regulate that, like in the healthcare device field. When I was with Harbor Labs, that was one of the things that we did there.
Right.
Was helping people who had medical devices get their devices ready for FDA. FDA. Thank you, Dave. For some reason, that acronym just left my brain right there.
Right.
For FDA approval. There should be something similar for, I think, generally all these devices.
Yeah.
There should be some minimum requirement at least.
Well, the government is using their purchasing power to try to do something about this.
Right.
There's this thing called SBOMs, which are software bill of materials.
Mm-hmm.
And there's HBOMs, which are hardware bill of materials. And then there are FBOMs, which we're not going to talk about because this is a family show. But
which is what you say when all your data gets
right, exactly.
gets leaked out.
So basically what the federal government is doing is they're saying we buy a lot of stuff.
Right.
And in order for you to sell stuff to us, you need to provide us with this software bill of materials or this hardware bill of materials, basically an ingredients list of everything that goes into this device.
Mm-hmm.
And so that way there's some scrutiny at the government level as to exactly what Phil is asking about here. What's in there? How do we know? Where did it come from? So the degree to which that can affect a consumer device, let me tell you, the government buys a lot of consumer devices.
They do.
There are plenty of treadmills on military bases and gyms and government offices and all those kinds of places. So if these organizations want to sell to the government and they're a big buyer, they have to provide this information. So that could be a mechanism, could be a lever by which these things get sorted out and get audited, and there's some scrutiny there. That's the most active area that I'm aware of.
In the government, right.
Well, but it's in the government, but the intention is that by using the purchasing power of the government,
they're going to enforce benefit for everybody.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
There's another project from the Mozilla Foundation called Privacy Not Included, and you can just Google that, Privacy Not Included Mozilla, and it comes up and it talks about all of the different privacy aspects of different consumer products. And I just loaded up the page and it says, what has 4 wheels and collects your sexual activity data and sells your personal information? Probably your car.
Right.
Now, I'm intrigued by this. This is just a headline that somebody wrote to grab your attention, but now I'm intrigued. And it says here, 25 car brands tested, 25 car brands failed, which doesn't surprise me. You and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago about cars providing all this data, but we have now officially gone down our first rabbit hole.
Yeah, and ultimately we need some federal privacy legislation to put guardrails on this.
Yeah,
and
we're talking about that today in the interview.
There's no hope of that happening anytime soon with the dysfunctionality that's happening in Congress. But
cybersecurity is one of the things that really unites everybody in Congress. They're all on board with that.
Yes, and yet.
Right.
Yet.
It still doesn't come to the floor, does it?
Right. Well, right, because they can't agree because any progress is considered to be progress for the other team.
Right.
And so that's the way it is right now. So hopefully we'll see some movement. And, it is not just the Biden administration. I believe the Trump administration before them really got this whole SBOM thing started. So it's a bipartisan effort that's made its way through multiple administrations.
Indeed.
Good stuff.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Phil, for writing in. We do appreciate it.
The answer, Phil, both.
I think Phil's got this under control.
Right.
So we would love to hear from you. If there's something that you would like us to consider for the show, you can email us. It's hackinghumans@n2k.com. All right, Joe, I'm going to kick things off for us here. This is a story from the 404, written by Jason Kobler. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the 404. It's a new publication. It's a group of tech journalists who, I can't remember where they left. I want to say Vox, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Decided to start up their own thing. Joseph Cox is one of the folks on this team.
We've had Joseph Cox on this show.
We have. And it's a good team of experienced, very well-respected journalists, and they are making a run of things on their own. And
I like the name.
404 Media.
It's a good name.
So definitely worth checking out, and they're doing some really good work. This article is titled YouTube's War on Adblockers Shows How Google Controls the Internet. Now, Joe, I don't know what your experience is with YouTube, or how often. Would you say you're a frequent YouTube user?
Probably daily.
Okay.
Yeah.
I use YouTube quite a bit as well, but I actually pay for YouTube Premium.
Oh, do you?
And I will tell you why I pay for YouTube Premium.
It's to get the ads off of it.
Well, yes, but the thing that finally made me pull the trigger on this is I was in my house and I had a water leak. There was a pipe that was leaking. Water was pouring out of a pipe. And I was going on YouTube to find out what my best course of action was to mitigate this.
Right.
And so I do a search, and I find the perfect video to tell me what to do. And what do I have to do first, Joe?
You have to wait through a 15-second ad. Somebody had this with like a CPR problem. They had somebody experiencing a cardiac issue, and they Googled a video on CPR, how to do CPR, and they have to wait 15 seconds for an ad to play.
Yeah.
And they write, the joke is they wrote, I don't know if it's a joke or if it's true, but they wrote to Google or they make a post on Google, or on Twitter about it, and Google says, you should consider going to YouTube Premium.
Well, there you go. And that's exactly what I did. And let me tell you, YouTube Premium ain't cheap, but for me, it's worth it because I do consume a lot of content on YouTube, and it is much better with no ads. Now, other people have come at this in different ways. They use ad blockers to block the ads on YouTube and have varying degrees of success with that. Well, YouTube is coming down on the ad blockers. They're feeling like this is digging into their revenue too much. So they have started a bit of an arms race between themselves and the companies who provide the ad blockers. You know, and some of these are built into your browsers. Some of them are plugins that you can add to your browsers.
Right.
And over the past couple of weeks, it's really been back and forth.
I bet they're not built into the Chrome browser, though.
They are not built into the Chrome browser, right. And that is one of the points of this story.
Right.
Which is that Google... I'll just read a quote here from the article itself. It says, Google has its hands on quite literally every aspect of this entire saga as a vertically integrated ad tech giant. Most ad blockers are browser extensions that are most widely used on Chrome, which is a Google product and the most popular browser in the world. They're being used to block ads sold by Google, the largest ad company in the world. And they are specifically being used to block ads on YouTube, a Google-owned website that is also one of the largest websites on Earth. So it is in Google's best interest to block these ads, of course, but they control so much of this.
Block the ad?
Yeah, well, they control the browser.
Right.
And so, you know.
Why is it in Google's best interest to block the ads? That's where their business.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's in Google's best interest to block the ad blockers.
Right, correct, yes.
Yeah. So I'm before we dig in with my thoughts on this, I'm curious what your thoughts on this are from a high level when it comes to ad blockers in general and why we should be using them and the morality of doing so.
Oh, I think it's perfectly moral to do so.
Yeah.
I don't have any compunction with using an ad blocker.
Okay.
I feel no moral obligation to watch or be subjected to Google's ads.
Okay.
Even though I generally do use the Chrome browser and sit through the ads, I don't believe that that's my obligation. You are hosting a site on the internet. If you want to try to put an ad blocker on there, okay, that's your prerogative, but I am also free to try to use an ad blocker. This is supposed to be an open network, and it always has been. And maybe I'm a little bit too too idealistic from the early days of the internet, where everything was available and just on there.
Right.
But no, I do not have a compunction or any reservations about using an ad blocker.
Yeah.
Also, I do want to comment about your statement that Google is a vertically integrated. I don't know if you used the term monopoly, but it seems like it's an end-to-end Google solution.
Well, they are in the midst of an antitrust trial right now as we speak. So.
Correct, they are.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you can use Mozilla Firefox as your browser.
Yeah,
no problem. It's available for you to do it, and you do not have to use the Chrome browser. You can walk away from that. You can also use other streaming services that are not as good. They're not as good as YouTube. That's really the problem.
Right.
And they don't have the content that YouTube does.
Right.
But I mean, if you're a content creator, you can use sites like Odyssey, and there are some other ones out there.
Right, but none of us know the names of them.
None of us know the names of them. That's right. We all know the name YouTube.
Right. It's the Kleenex of online video. Right. It's one of those things where the brand is the service.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing I will add here from my own point of view is that I think ad blockers are a security function as well, because so much malware is delivered through ads.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another, there is a moral argument here, but it's not on the user's side. If you're Google, it is your moral obligation to keep malicious ads out of your ad feeds.
Right.
And they are not doing that.
Yeah.
So if you're going to block, I think that it's within everyone's prerogative to block the Google ads that come up on search results. Mm-hmm. And I think that Google has really used a lot. I don't want to call them dark patterns, but I mean, because they're really not, they make these ads look exactly like the search results.
Right. Well,
that's they're in control of everything.
Yeah,
that's what they do.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess, I've made the point elsewhere that if somebody wants to toss an ad up on their site in exchange for me viewing their content, I don't have a problem with that.
Right.
The same way I don't have a problem with TV commercials, in the middle of a football game or a show that I want to watch. The problem I have is with all the trackers behind the scenes who are getting my location, my browser, just tracking all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so,
all the analytics.
Yeah, you want to show me an ad? Show me an ad. But one of the main reasons that I have ad blockers installed is to fight all of that tracking stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's just downright creepy. And at the moment, here in the good old US of A, we don't have legislation to prevent it.
Not yet. But and I don't know that we ever will.
Yeah. I hope so. I don't know. We'll see. It'll have to. I joke that it'll have to affect Congress in some way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was somebody who had bought, because you can go out to a data broker and buy people's information.
Right.
And there was somebody who had gone out and bought congressmen's browsing histories.
Yeah, I think it was John Oliver who did that.
Yeah. Oh, John Oliver. Was that who that was?
I think it was. Yeah.
I think that's brilliant. It's a great idea. I think they should do that and just start posting them.
Yeah.
Hey, I bought this information here. Look.
Right. Publicly available. Yeah. So there's no resolution to this right now. I mean, it's back and forth. This article does point out that there was a time not that long ago when Facebook went down the same path of they were trying to block people who were blocking ads coming through on Facebook. And Facebook eventually gave up on that because despite having all the resources, they decided it really wasn't worth their effort to keep doing that. So maybe there'll be some place where we meet in the middle here. I will say one thing I was half expecting as a YouTube Premium subscriber who also uses ad blockers. Mm-hmm. I was afraid that I was going to get notices popping up when I went to use YouTube that said, we noticed you're using an ad blocker. Well, I haven't seen any of that. So at least it's smart enough to know that if you are paying, leave me alone. Right.
Right.
So
we already have your money.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, what does it cost a month for YouTube Premium?
I think it's like $18.
18. That's steep for an internet service.
I agree. But I do get a lot of enjoyment out of it. There are some channels that I watch regularly. I definitely watch. There are things that I watch on YouTube that I would have been the kinds of things I would have watched on regular TV in the past. Mm. So it's worth it to me.
Does it have TV shows? Or does that's the YouTube TV service that they have?
That's
like
YouTube
$70 a
TV,
month.
which I also have at home. So we cut the cord and went with YouTube TV, which is great.
Right.
Great. It saves us about $80 a month, I think, to use YouTube instead of the cable company. So, worth exploring.
Okay.
All right. That is my story this week. Joe, what do you have for us?
Dave, I have a personal story this week. Somebody I know, and this person has asked that I don't identify them.
Okay.
But they got, Dave.
Is their name Bo Harrigan?
It is not Bo Harrigan. No, it's not me.
Okay.
Bo Jerrigan.
It is actually a friend. All right.
Right. No, this is actually a friend of mine.
Okay.
I got a phone call on, I think it was Saturday.
Yeah.
And I'm coming home, and this guy is in a panic, and he's like, I got. And I'm like, oh, what happened? And here's what happened.
Okay.
First off, he is a software engineer.
Mm-hmm.
So guess what he does for a hobby? He writes some code for for this simulation for football.
Oh, okay.
And it's really, there's a small group of people that write the code and then play the game. And it's a private group of people that do both these things. And I've told him many times, you could monetize this. This is really good. And he says, no, we're not doing that. This is a hobby for us.
Okay.
So I said, okay, fine. Well, somebody in his group says, hey, this is on Discord. The person reaches out to him. He's been talking to this guy for a number of years, off and on.
Right.
And this person reaches out and says, hey, I'm trying to develop this new game. Can you take a look at it for me? And he's like, sure. So he sends him a link to a Blogspot URL, and it says the file's at the bottom. It's an encrypted RAR file, and gives him the password to the encrypted RAR file. And he says, okay, fine. And he without thinking, because he knows this guy,
right,
he runs this RAR file, and immediately Discord crashes on his computer.
Now, just real quick, Joe, what's a RAR file?
A RAR file is a Russian zip application.
Okay, so it's a way of compressing a file,
Correct,
making a file smaller.
Right.
Okay.
So it's like zip, but it doesn't work well for executables. It doesn't compress well for executables, but it does have the encryption function like zip files do.
Okay.
So what happens when you encrypt that file is now, if you upload that to a place like Blogspot, they can't scan the file because they don't know the decryption key.
Right.
Which is just a simple password. I mean, if they brute forced it, they could probably get to it.
Yeah.
But they don't have the time or the resources to do that, apparently.
Right.
So he has Discord on his phone immediately, and the guy sends him a text message that says, gotcha, right? Here's your username and your password for Discord. And he's like, that's right. He says, I have a bunch of other information as well. And he shows him some captures of some Google contacts lists, which I don't know how the malware worked and got that, but I think it's just data stealer malware.
Yeah.
So he says, okay. And the guy says, I need $500 right now.
Wow.
And he goes, do you have Zelle? He goes, no, what's Zelle? Right? The whole time he's talking to the guy, he's changing his password. Right? He's changing his Discord password. And then he's going through and changing all of his other passwords while he's stalling this guy.
Right.
And he keeps stalling the guy, and the guy's like, you better not be stalling me. He goes, look, I'm trying to get this app installed, and I got it connected to my bank account. I don't know how any of this works. My computer doesn't work right now, so I can't. And the other thing he did as soon as that happened and he got that message was he pulled his computer off the internet.
Right.
So he physically disconnected the network cable. It was a hardwired RJ45 jack in the back.
Okay.
And the guy continues to pressure him and keeps saying, look, give me this money. And he's like, I've got all these different things going on right now. I'm trying to get this app to work. I'm trying to get my bank account connected. I've got the baby crying in the background. And this guy then sends in all caps, just send me the money, right?
Yeah.
And that's when my friend knows, all right, he's done. He's not getting anything. He's frustrated.
Right.
So he's changed all the passwords that he thinks he's concerned about. And at that point in time, he says, he just stops communicating with the guy.
Okay.
So I actually got to his house a little bit later, and I actually pull a copy of the file off of his computer, and I upload it to VirusTotal. VirusTotal does not flag it as malicious, but VirusTotal does say that it communicates with malicious command and control servers.
Okay,
but they don't list it as a virus, probably because, or they don't. None of their detection methods found it to be malicious because it's probably specially crafted for each use case, right? So this is probably a file that this guy built for himself, and now it doesn't set off any of the triggers.
Right.
But then I said I got on my Discord channel and talked to the group of students I have.
Okay.
And I said, does anybody want to analyze some malware? And
okay.
I got a couple of takers.
Taking advantage of the Hopkins connection.
Right, exactly.
All right.
And somebody actually who's not a Hopkins student took a look at it and said it's this is a variation of Epsilon Stealer.
Okay.
And it's not being flagged because it's probably specially crafted, but it certainly does communicate with malicious domains and malicious IPs. So I still have it. And the thing is, here's the thing. I actually reached out to Blogspot. I used the report abuse link on Blogspot. This website is still up right now. So I've told Blogspot, hey, you've got malware on this site. And I know it's malware because a friend of mine got victimized by it. Nothing. Still there. A week later. So in the process of communication with this attacker, my friend realizes or gets told by the attacker, he says, yeah, I took over your buddy's Discord account with the same attack, and he didn't give me my $500, so he doesn't have the account anymore. So he said, well, I've already changed my password, so you're not getting that. And he changed his password on his phone, so it's on a non-infected phone, presumably. The guy did not gain access to his Discord, and I've talked with my friend on Discord as well. So it's still him on there.
Yeah.
It's an interesting social engineering attack, though. The guy comes at a software developer who he knows is a software developer because he can see all the old chats about software development. Says, hey, I'm trying out this game. Use this. And we've seen this kind of attack happen from state-sponsored activities. I don't think this was state-sponsored. I think this was just some scammer. Yeah. Some script kiddie. But we've seen these things happen with state-sponsored actors working in the crypto space, where they're targeting not in the crypto space, it's in the vulnerability research space, where they pose as other vulnerability researchers and get these vulnerabilities from people before they're talked about.
Right.
So it struck me as interesting that it was a similar tactic. That now these tactics are becoming more mainstream.
Yeah. I'm curious, to what degree does your friend who got scammed, what is his emotional reaction to this? Excellent question, Dave. And I completely forgot to mention this. First off, he was angry. Second, he was upset with himself. He said, I feel so stupid. Yeah.
And I said to him, don't feel that way. This guy took advantage of an existing relationship to lie to you. You didn't fall for this because you're stupid, because you're not stupid. You're smart. It's just that this guy exploited something inside of you. Now, we all are vulnerable to these kind of things, especially when somebody's impersonating somebody you know by using their bona fide accounts that you've previously communicated with them on. This we have seen all over the place, like people hitting up people on Facebook Messenger for loans because they're out of town, they need money.
Right.
Send me money.
Right.
But this is the same tactic there. But posing as a software engineer and specifically targeting software developers, so they're more likely to open it.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, I mean, it's no fun, but it could have been a lot worse.
It could have been a lot worse. I think he got out relatively unscathed. He did have to rebuild his computer, though. So completely rebuild it.
Well, I mean, for a hobbyist like him, that's probably fun.
Yeah.
oh, darn. I have to, honey, bad news. I've got to rebuild my computer.
It's a pain when you have to reinstall your operating system. It sucks.
I know.
I just did it at work.
Don't throw me in the briar patch.
Yeah.
I know. All right, good stuff. All right, Joe, it is time to move on to our catch of the day.
Dave, our catch of the day comes from John, who found this conversation over on Reddit at r/scambait, which I haven't looked at in a while, but maybe I should. We'll put a link in the show notes to the actual Reddit post, but this is one of those wrong number text messages.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to play the role of the scammer or of the recipient?
I'll be the one in green, so I guess that's the recipient.
Right, so I'm the scammer.
Okay.
Now, the scammer's pretending to be a woman, so I have to put on my sexy voice, Dave.
Okay.
Hello, how are you?
I've been better. Susan from next door is being a nuisance again. Not that's anything unusual. You know how she can be. How are you?
Yes, I find too. By the way, are you John that my friend Lucy introduced me to? I'm Jessica from L.A.
This is Carol. John is my husband, though. What do you need to speak to him about?
This isn't my friend John from Texas?
Are you having an affair with my husband? I knew he's been acting weird.
What are you talking about? I'm looking for my friend. I was looking for him because I heard he was in Los Angeles. Looks like I entered the wrong number. I'm really sorry. Maybe I entered the wrong number. I hope you don't mind me. Are you there? I'm a scammer. Don't worry. Your husband isn't what you think.
Okay.
For a scammer like me, I don't want you to have a marriage problem. And I'm male, not a woman.
Wow.
So that's the end of the conversation.
That's an unexpected twist.
Right. This guy has a conscience. I'm just trying to scam somebody for money. I didn't mean to ruin a marriage.
Yeah, I mean, there's a line.
Right.
Right? Some kind of bro code or something. I don't know. Like, okay. All right. Well, That's funny.
That is good.
All right. Well, of course, we would love to hear from you. If there's something you'd like us to consider for our catch of the day, you can email us. It's hackinghumans@n2k.com.
Thank you, John. That was awesome. We haven't had the opportunity to do a screenplay in a while here.
No.
Table read.
Great fun. Great fun. We were talking about mitigating cyber threats to your organization before your users even see them. The new Fish ER Plus from KnowBe4 was developed to help you supercharge your organization's email security defenses. How? You get a unique crowdsourcing advantage. More than 10 million highly trained KnowBe4 end users from across the globe catch and report malicious email that makes it through all the filters. KnowBe4's Threat Lab then validates it with AI and with human researchers. Fish ER Plus blocks phishing threads other tools have missed and proactively removes them from your users' inboxes. Not quite time travel, but we think you'll agree it's a vital capability in any InfoSec professional's arsenal. Visit knowbe4.com/products/fisher-plus to learn more. That's knowbe4.com/products/fisher-plus. And we thank KnowBe4 for sponsoring our show. Joe, I recently had the pleasure of speaking with Harry Maugans. He is the CEO of an organization called Privacy Bee, and we are talking about this notion of digital breadcrumbs. Here's my conversation with Harry Maugans.
So a digital breadcrumb is really, as a person uses the internet or goes through life in any way, unfortunately, to interact with most companies, it requires giving them some information. It requires creating some presence, making your existence known, either publicly or within private hands. And every day that goes by and you create more of those breadcrumbs, eventually they start compounding and piling up on each other until you have a pretty substantial, breadcrumb and digital footprint.
Can you give us a sense for the scope of this? I mean, is this online shopping? Is it social media? Is all those things wrapped up?
So primarily it's things that show up in Google. That's usually where people are most worried about having their breadcrumbs, because that's what can expose a home address or a cell phone number or family, their kids' names, that kind of thing. But realistically, there's a lot of places that create these breadcrumbs, such as using your Kroger Plus card. Those discounts on groceries aren't just out of the kindness of Kroger's heart. They offer the Kroger Plus card as a way to sell the data of what you're buying to marketers. And that then, percolates to hundreds of companies in some cases. And all those companies are now starting to compile interests and buying patterns on you. And that's just, one breadcrumb. As you go through the day, you have quite a few more that are constantly accumulating.
Is there a generational aspect to this as well? I mean, I guess is there a point at which this started to happen? For folks like me who've been around for a while and have been online as long as there's been an online to be on, was there a moment in time when this really kind of kicked into gear? I guess I'm wondering, how far back do we need to worry about?
That's a great question. And the answer is a little bit, it's something I've debated before, where at some point our society, there's a switch that flipped. We used to be an opt-in society. I don't know where that moment in time was, but it changed and we suddenly became an opt-out society, where every company felt entitled to collect everything they could. Consent is a very fuzzy word. And, and to your point, when I was growing up, I was, the generation, the same as you were saying, where, when I first started getting online, my family, my parents told me, hey, don't use your real name, use pseudonyms, right? You can't be, safe if you're giving your information out there to anybody who wants it. Well, things are changed now. This current generation is really identity first. I mean, even to comment on YouTube, you have to disclose your information to Google. I think it was it LinkedIn or Twitter, one of those major platforms recently, or X, I guess it's called. They recently started requiring a government ID to confirm and verify identity. Yeah, LinkedIn partnered with Clear, and now you have to scan your face to confirm you are who you say you are. So identities somehow become a required element of interacting in online mediums. And I mean, it's always been there. But so let me zoom out. There's a dichotomy. There is the digital breadcrumb where it's anonymous. And there's a huge amount of tracking that happens. Every website visited, and dropping cookies, collecting mouse behavior, tracking, a page view history as you go from page to page and piecing it together to identify a browsing journey, all that anonymously being collected. And then you have the identified side where they know your name, they know your email address, they know who you are. And all those previously anonymous behaviors get rolled up against your identity to tie it to your PII. And that's where also you can combine offline shopping behaviors, e-commerce behaviors, banking information, even what kind of magazines you subscribe to. All that stuff is collected and tied to an identity. The anonymous side, it's been happening, for a decade or more, using the internet ever since analytics companies started tracking, site visits. They added more and more tracking and more data collection. But on the PII side, I would probably say it goes back probably 5 to 10 years. Things started getting really scary, where it's, there's that inflection point where the greed started outweighing the ethics and morality of data collection.
Yeah. What are the concerns here for a enterprise level, for folks who are running a company, concerned about their employees? What specific things should be of concern to them?
Well, if you see the news, I mean, every day it feels like there's a new data breach happening. And if you look into those data breaches, almost all of them are caused from overexposed PII online on an employee that's being weaponized through spear phishing or social engineering. So a bad guy finds some employee with a level of access that he's trying to compromise. They research that person online. They find everything about their family. They find everything about where they live, their address, the previous cars they've had, anything they can get their hands on about that person. And then they can step into their shoes. They can call a support line and pretend to be that person in the event like what just happened with MGM, social engineering. Or they can send a text message to that person pretending to be a family member or pretending to be a doctor of them or of their son or daughter. or any way they can trick that person to disclose a two-factor code, to sidestep every bit of cybersecurity the employer has, and really put all that training to waste. Because if you make the person believe it's a legitimate inquiry, they'll give you anything you want, usually.
Do you empathize with people who have a certain sense of resignation when it comes to this? That I hear a lot of people say, well, it's all already out there. I'm just going to relax and go with the flow, and because it doesn't do me any good to worry about it because I don't really have any control over it anyway.
Yes, that is there's elements of data that you cannot mask very easily, such as property records. You can buy a house in an LLC, but ultimately, if you buy it using your name, where the vast majority of people do, that is a public record. The difference is, same thing with arrest records. You can't hide the fact that there's a public record about an arrest. But usually government sites that have this information that's out there, they don't broadcast it. It's behind a login or a county clerk's office paper or something like that. The problem is the megaphones. They're the ones who scrape those county court office records and have such strong SEO that they're showing up on the front page of Google every time somebody searches for that person's name. And they make it a lot easier to obtain. And then they take that simple record, like a property address, and they append thousands and thousands of fields. And I'm not exaggerating. In a lot of cases, the data brokers expand a massive number of fields to say, hey, this person at this address has all of these interests, these hobbies, these nonprofit donation activities, this voting propensity, all kinds of information to create this very creepy profile on a person that should not be publicly available, in my opinion.
So what's to be done here? What sort of tools are available if somebody does want to try to claw some of this back?
I'm biased, but I believe PrivacyBee, my company PrivacyBee is really the best suited one in the industry. There's a handful of companies helping to claw back the data and try to put the genie back in the bottle. A lot of them are focused more on high volume customers, whereas we focus more on quality and being as comprehensive of cleaning up the data as possible. And as such, we're not the cheapest. But the way I'm looking at it, privacy is something that you really can't halfway do. Because if there's 3 sites in Google exposing your home address and cell phone number, and a service only deletes 1 or 2 of them, the bad guy who's trying to impersonate you for social engineering, spear phishing, scamming, whatever it is, they're not going to know there was previously 2 sites that got deleted. They're going to search you, find that one result that has the data they want of your cell phone number, and they're going to use it, and they're going to weaponize it. So unless you have a comprehensive approach covering as many sites as possible, like I think as of today, we have 440 data brokers and 145,000 separate websites we're tracking and scrubbing against. Without having a comprehensive solution, it's really not very effective for trying to reclaim your digital footprint.
How do you calibrate people's expectations? I mean, what is a reasonable expectation for the types of things that can actually be scrubbed?
Another great question. So there is no silver bullet. And a lot of people look at this saying, hey, privacy is magic, or it's impossible, or it's some enormous feat. We took the different approach. We publicize every single thing we do. We wrote step-by-step guides on how a person or an individual or employer or an employee can do this scrubbing by themselves. We scan a person for free. We point out all the exposures at everywhere we found them. And then we say, hey, here's what to do. Step 1, click this link. Step 2, send this email. Step 3, click that form, whatever. The thing is, with our company, PrivacyBee is focused for economies of scale. So we take this very tedious and arduous process and we can scale it out to resolve hundreds of exposures, whereas most people don't have the time to sit down for 20 or 30 hours and do it manually. But nothing here is magic. And as far as expectations, I mean, everything that we do, the end user can do. We're just, we're a commodity for those who don't have the hours to invest.
Right. It's like hiring an accountant if you don't want to do your own taxes, right? Most people don't have the expertise to do their own taxes.
You're hitting a sore spot. I don't like talking about taxes.
Fair enough. Fair enough. How do the data brokers respond to these sorts of requests? Or, to what degree are they above board and want to do the right thing? And how many of them are more difficult to work with?
So data brokers are pretty good. Some people search sites are a little more slippery. There's a couple different answers to that. So if a state or a country has some kind of privacy legislation that allows us to legally compel a removal, we will actually capture a limited power of attorney. We will go through the steps and leverage the law to force the data broker to comply, and then rescan to hold them accountable. Some areas, certain states, certain territories don't have a law today that's protecting them legally, which is unfortunate. And, we actually have 3 lobbyists on retainer trying to fix that because we really believe in solving this problem. However, until then, we send in a request to a data broker that may not have, legal legislative requirements to delete it. And we phrase it very formally. We try to encourage action and follow up aggressively. However, they could choose to say no. However, they usually don't, because when you're looking at a data broker, they might have 300 million, 500 million, a few billion if they're global profiles of individuals, massive amounts of data. They're trying to stay in the shadows. They're these companies, the Epsilons and Axioms, and these companies that are not household names that make millions of dollars buying and selling data. If somebody comes along, like a privacy bee, with a deletion request saying, hey, please delete this John Doe from the database, it's easier for them to say, sure, we'll remove him in good faith, than try to push back, create animosity, a potential legal issue for them if they did something wrong, and a blow up that forces them out of the shadows. So the easiest path for them is compliance. So while we do have some fights here and there, the vast majority of companies that are monetizing people's information immorally, in my opinion, they usually comply when a proper request comes in.
How does this work going forward? I mean, is this, I suspect it's not a one and done sort of thing. There's a certain amount of ongoing vigilance that people have to have with this?
That's a hugely valuable point. A lot of people think, hey, I deleted, I'm good. The problem is there's a cycle in the data broker industry. On average, we see about half of our exposures reemerge within the first 6 months, usually closer to 5 months, which is a huge percentage, right? Where we just send a deletion in, they comply, they remove it, but then a few months later, it pops back up again. And the reason for that is data brokers buy data from data originators or data sources. So if you delete your grocery shopping profile from some marketing agency, and later they refresh it back with the company that buys from Kroger Plus, eventually it'll percolate through the ecosystem and reemerge again. So just because it's a deletion now doesn't mean it's permanent. So finding a way of monitoring it ongoing is, and then whenever it does reemerge, resubmitting the deletion request. So it's almost like a game of whack-a-mole. It's very frustrating. However, we rescan all of our people. It's usually 7 days to 30 days, depending on the license type. We're very, very aggressively monitoring what's going on. And then as soon as we see it pop back up again, within 24 hours, we resubmit the deletion and start the process all over again. So having a service is really, you're buying privacy as an ongoing investment in yourself, your quality of life, your quality of your business, almost as much as a single transactional, hey, let's get this scrubbed and move on. Unfortunately, the world is continuously collecting and repopulating these databases.
Do people notice a difference? I mean, after you and your colleagues have done your work or your organizations like yours, is there anything in my life that I would notice? Are there fewer, pestering text messages or calls, or would I notice a change?
Yes. Yes. That's why we do it, right? At the end of the day, a telemarketer who's calling you every hour, driving you insane, making you want to throw your phone out the window, they're not just picking up their end and dialing random numbers. They buy a list of people to target, and they take that list, they load it into some auto dialing system, and they hit go. If you remove yourself from the data brokers that sell to these telemarketers know the numbers are going stale. So every day that goes by, less numbers they can connect with. So every month, every 3 months, they have to buy a new data set. So even if the telemarketer themselves doesn't remove you, if you're subscribed to an ongoing data removal service like Privacy Bee, we remove from the data brokers where whenever the telemarketer does refresh the database, maybe next month, your name is no longer in that list. They're not selling your information anymore, which means when they load that giant spam list into their auto dialer and they hit go, it doesn't ring your phone. So yes, the tangible result is you get less telemarketing, you get less spam text messages, you get less, hey, sell your house or buy this car extended warranty. And then for businesses, they get less spear phishing, and it's less social engineering, which is, it's a huge point in the B2B world. You talk about data breaches, they invest in top of the line cybersecurity, but we like to say cybersecurity is no longer enough in 2023. 100% of the companies that got breached last year had cybersecurity, and they still got breached. So removing, the ability for attackers to see the employees like a juicy steak, that's really what's hardening the company's InfoSec, where there's less spear phishing, less social engineering, and ultimately less data breaches. So a lot of tangible results.
Joe, what do you think?
Dave, I like your analogy that you've said many times in this show about your personal data being like fissile material, right? Radioactive stuff.
Yeah.
It's fine as long as it's spread out and not really concentrated in any one area. But once it starts getting concentrated, it becomes dangerous.
Right.
Right. So one of the things that Harry talks about are affinity cards. Mm-hmm. And, when you go to any of the stores around here, they all have their affinity card, and you can't get the special low price deals unless you have an affinity card.
That's right.
There are a couple tricks. Some of these places will have their own card that they can scan.
Yes.
And you get the deals. Other places will say, I forgot my card, and they'll just give you the deal.
Right.
And then there's the 8675309 trick.
Yes.
Are you familiar with this trick?
I use it every day.
Okay. So you...
I do. At my local grocery store. I use it every day.
Some people may not be familiar with the song. I don't know. I think everybody our age, once I said that phone number, they had that song in their head.
Yeah, it's Jenny's phone number.
Right,
We all know Jenny, 8675309.
If you take your area code, your local area code, and put that in, and then enter 8675309, somebody has set up an affinity account under that number.
Guarantee it.
Yep. So you can use that one. Now, I found some places where it doesn't work as well. Like I've recently had some difficulty collecting the fuel points for that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I used to be able to get fuel points using that number. But it still does work at the store for buying, as you say, it works. And all it does is it keeps your information out of the grocery store's hands with your buying power.
Right.
What you're buying. They don't know that Dave Bittner's buying this.
No.
They think that Jenny's buying this
Right.
stuff.
And boy, Jenny does a lot of shopping.
Yeah, she does. There are a ton of people using this.
Yeah.
I think the horse is already out of the barn on a lot of this for most of us, which is why Harry and his company have a business model.
Yeah.
Because they go out and they try to remedy it. I try to use pseudonyms wherever I can, but I think it's pretty easy for companies to just make the association, oh, this is Joe Kerrigan. I know who this is.
Right.
We need to get back to an opt-in society instead of being opt-out.
Yeah.
I would like to see something happen where it's opt-in. And Harry talks briefly about OSINT, or open source intelligence gathering. Mm-hmm. And when you're talking about the attack chain, this is part of the attack chain, particularly in an organization that you really don't have any control over. It's something that an attacker can go out and do because you kind of have to have this information out there, and your employees are going to have that information out there anyway. You as an individual might have some control over that. Like, I don't think I even show up in the Facebook member searches. Like, if you search my name and you and I aren't connected, I don't show up.
Okay.
At least I think that. Haven't verified that because I don't have a second Facebook account.
Right.
At least not yet. But a company doesn't have that. So that information is out there, and these people gathering the information, they're going to do it. So my recommendation is just think that somebody already knows all the open source information that's out there about your company, because they probably do. If they're good attackers, they're going to know that before they take their first action.
Yeah.
Harry talks about websites requiring a photo ID. This is a non-starter for me out of the gate by default. There might be a couple of exceptions to this, like if there's an online bank that requires me to do this for opening an account, I might do that. But generally speaking, I'm not going to do that with an online bank. I'm going to go to a branch and open an account there.
Right.
But there are a lot of banks that are just online now.
Yeah.
We had a guest on maybe a month or two ago that was on a dating app. I'm not single, so I don't need to use a dating app. If a married man should never be on a dating app. But were I single, I might consider using some kind of data verification service or something like that for a dating app. I think that's probably a good personal security measure to make sure that people you're talking to are vetted. But outside of those two situations, I can't think of a situation where I would be using an ID. Like if Facebook said, "Hey, Joe, we need to see your driver's license," I'm going to say, "Nope, close my account and delete all my data." I'd say that to them the moment they said that. That would be the end of the line for me in Facebook.
Right.
Same with any social media platform. If LinkedIn said that to me tomorrow, I'm gone.
Yeah.
That is a line in the sand for me.
I recently logged into Facebook again after a 4-year break.
I know. I saw you.
Yeah, and
we're still friends on Facebook.
Yeah, and so now Facebook is nagging me to hey, upload your contact list. I'm like, I'm not falling for that again.
Right. Can't you say stop asking? I thought it nagged me for that for years, and it doesn't nag me anymore.
Yeah,
I never gave it to him.
I don't know. Yeah. It's annoying. I joined Facebook and I immediately realized why I had left.
Are you enjoying it? So you're not enjoying it all?
I mean, the reasons that I reconnected, which were that I felt like there were some, life events from friends that I was missing out on. So that's the reason I'm there.
Right.
But it is so noisy. Like it's just, the content is so diffuse. Like there's just so much crap on there, that the ads and the...
Oh, yeah.
And
let
me tell you, Mastodon is so much better.
Right.
So much better. To have a non-algorithmic feed is so much nicer.
Yeah. Well... Try to convince everybody on Facebook to go to Mastodon.
Well, there you go. That's the problem.
They won't do it.
They will not. No.
Yep. Amplifiers. Do you remember when we went to the Know Before conference?
Yep.
And the late Kevin Mitnick was on stage.
Right.
That was after we had interviewed him.
Yeah.
A highlight of my career, by the way.
Very nice.
So thank you for that opportunity, Dave.
Yeah, sure.
During that presentation, he showed us a tool that had all kinds of information about somebody.
Yeah.
And had a volunteer from the audience come up, and the guy just got this horrified, shocked look on his face as he saw this information that was about him in this tool. And Kevin wouldn't share the information about what the tool was. He wouldn't tell us what it was. He wouldn't tell anybody. I asked him. He said, I can't tell anybody about what that is. I don't know what it is. Somebody at the conference suggested it might be a private investigation tool, like for PIs, private investigators. But this data about you is out there. It exists.
Yeah.
And en masse. And I think it's funny when Harry talks about how these data brokers comply with his request to remove data from people or on people from their systems. They just want it to go away real quiet, which I think is really kind of interesting. And he mentions two of these data brokers in particular. One is Epsilon and the other one is Axiom. And I looked those companies up to see, are these companies, what are they? They're both divisions of other companies. One of them came from a merger between JCPenney Credit Corporation and the Limited Credit Corporation. And they had all this customer data, and that's how they started getting big. It's really interesting. You can read their Wikipedia article on these corporations, on their parent corporations.
Yeah.
Which, the information is out there, but they don't say a lot. There's not a lot known about these two companies.
Right.
Or these two organizations. They're actually divisions. Interesting that once again, or once after you delete the information, it starts showing up again. It's because you continue using the internet.
Right.
Right? And it's just out there. The key point is that security and privacy are two different things. We talked earlier in this show about Google and their full stack of privacy intrusion. Google does security very, very well. You are probably at very minimal risk using Google services for a security breach. But you have to understand that your privacy does not exist as far as Google's concerned. They know a lot about you.
Yeah.
Same with Facebook, same with Meta and Twitter and LinkedIn, all of these companies, which is owned by Microsoft now. all these companies are just amassing huge troves of data about you.
Right.
And there's little you can do to keep them from doing it, except, you can take extreme measures, and that is...
You could move to the EU.
Right. That would be good if we had something like that. Anyway, that's my big point for the end of the show is that privacy and security are two different things. Keep that in mind.
All right. Well, our thanks to Harry Maugans from Privacy Bee for joining us. We do appreciate him taking the time. We want to thank all of you for listening, and of course, we want to thank our sponsors at KnowBefore. That is our show. We want to thank all of you for listening. A quick reminder that N2K Strategic Workforce Intelligence optimizes the value of your biggest investment, your people. We make you smarter about your team while making your team smarter. Learn more at n2k.com. Our senior producer is Jennifer Iben. Our executive editor is Peter Kilpie. I'm Dave Bittner.
And I'm Joe Kerrigan.
Thanks for listening.
N2K has teamed up with AWS to bring you AWS in Orbit, a groundbreaking new series that explores the impact of space technology, cloud computing, and generative AI. Hi, I'm Maria Varmazes, and in this series, I speak with industry leaders to give you a nuanced understanding of how these technologies are revolutionizing sectors like sustainability, critical infrastructure, and cybersecurity. So if you're drawn to big ideas and are curious how space and cloud technologies are impacting life here on Earth, this series is for you. Follow the T- Space Daily podcast to catch every episode of AWS in Orbit and visit space.n2k.com/AWS to stay ahead of the curve.